One of the most important locations that has ever been discovered in the history of study on human evolution is the Cradle of Humankind in South Africa. This area, just northwest of Johannesburg, has been the site of so many incredible fossil hominid finds, many of which have rewritten what we thought we'd understood about how our lineage evolved. Importantly, the locality, which was designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1999, is still revealing considerable hominid discoveries, with several major finds in the last few years. One of these finds was the astonishing revelation of a completely new human species that lived around 300,000 years ago, which ended up completely changing the perception of how complex hominin evolution was at this time, adding to the picture of a once diverse lineage of multiple human species living at the same time. During August of 2021, Doug and I were incredibly lucky to have the chance to actually visit the Cradle of Humankind for ourselves, and were taken down into the cave systems where these amazing discoveries were made, seeing with our own eyes how the Cradle reveals the answers to the mysteries of human evolution, as well as creating whole new questions to be solved.
We were here because we had been invited to join an expedition to the Karoo semi-desert by paleontologists at the University of Witwatersrand in order to search and excavate much older fossils than these hominins. But before the expedition got started, we had some time to explore some of South Africa's other paleontological treasures.
It was our second day in the country when we were taken back to Wits University, and while Dr. Julian Benoit, who had invited us on the expedition, had to go and sort out some final preparations for it, Doug and I were let loose in the eminent Origins Centre. We're now here at the Origins Centre at the University of Witwatersrand, which is a wonderful museum that explores the origins of humanity. Africa obviously being the continent from which we all originated.
Origins has some incredible specimens on display and is an amazingly well laid out museum. There's a remarkable collection of the different types of stone tools utilised by ancient humans, as well as carved ostrich eggs used as water containers, and a brilliant visualisation of the stratigraphic relationship of stone tools found on different continents.
The Origins Centre is also home to the Rock Art Research Institute, and has a fascinating section on all of the amazing rock art that has been found in this country, created by the oldest indigenous inhabitants of southern Africa, the San people. There's also an incredible, almost full-scale replica of the story of the capture of Chief Maliboho of the Hanawa people in 1894, as told by rock art located at a site in the north of the country.
We also ran into some casts of some old friends.
There are great models of the various South African hominids on display in drawers, which are actually able to be touched by members of the public, a brilliant way to engage with people. The museum also contains a beautiful specimen of the dinosaur Massospondylus. In fact, it's the neotype of this dinosaur, meaning this specimen is now the basis for the definition of this species, as the original fossil was destroyed. But you'll be hearing a lot more about Massospondylus in the next episode.
We were very excited by the signs pointing to a dinosaur gallery, so quickly made our way towards it.
Yes, here we go.
What we found was a temporary exhibit room filled with full-scale reconstructions of not just dinosaurs, but also the various therapsid inhabitants of the Karoo. Needless to say, we had a lot of fun looking at these.
There were two dinosaur models here, the North African Afrovenator and the South African Dracovenator. Dracovenator is actually found in the Karoo supergroup, while Afrovenator comes from a different, later sequence of rocks. Well, here we have a Dracovenator, name obviously meaning dragon hunter, found in the Upper Elliott Formation in part of the Karoo supergroup. So it's from the early Jurassic. The therapsids on display here, all animals that belong to the same group containing ancient mammal relatives and mammals themselves, included Aulocephalodon, a fairly large dicynodont that we would be lucky enough to later find fossils of on the expedition, Tapinocaninus, a specimen of which we would also later end up excavating, and a fearsome Gorgonopsian model feeding on another, less fortunate Aulocephalodon.
The Origins Centre was a wonderful experience, and I'd highly recommend visiting it if you ever get the chance. There really is so much to see here and some absolutely beautiful exhibitions, especially about the San people.
After leaving Origins, we went with PhD student Alienor Duhamel, who very kindly drove us out to the Cradle of Humankind while Julian was busy with preparations for the expedition.
This region of the country is one of the most significant places in the world for the study of human evolution. So many crucial discoveries have been made in the limestone caves hidden under the landscape here, as we'd seen the previous day in the vault, many of which improved key parts of our understanding of our own evolution.
Now, we didn't actually know the exact details of what we were going to be doing here in the Cradle. All we'd been told was that Julian had arranged for us to meet people at this particular site.
Well, as it turned out, we were in for an absolutely awesome surprise.
The place we'd found ourselves in was actually the active research camp of Professor Lee Berger, the world-renowned paleoanthropologist who helped name and describe Australopithecus sediba, as well as Homo naledi.
The discovery of these hominids played a major role in bringing attention to South Africa as a crucial place of research into these early humans, whereas before, a lot more attention had been focused on localities in East Africa.
At the camp, we were greeted by the paleoarchaeologists and cavers Dr. Kanelu Molupiani and Dirk van Rooyen, members of the research team who have done a lot of work on the hominids found in the Cradle.
Ben and I were lucky enough to be given access to Rising Star Cave, the system in which Homo naledi itself was first discovered.
We could not believe how fortunate we were to be able to visit this place and actually go down into the cave system. It was literally a dream come true for me.
When two cavers first came across the chamber containing the hominid bones in 2013, they informed Professor Berger of their findings, who then set about assembling a team of scientists to retrieve these bones. These underground astronauts, as they were called, were made up of 6 women who were able to make it through the terrifyingly narrow system all the way to the bottom of the naledi chamber, where the bones sat.
Incredibly, the chamber contained over 1,550 bones representing at least 15 individuals, making this the most abundant assemblage of hominins found together in all of Africa. The new species was named in 2015 as Homo naledi, naledi meaning star in Sesotho, in reference to Rising Star Cave. So it's Homo naledi they found in the Dinaledi.
Yeah, so
chamber, isn't it?
Lesedi and Dinaledi. Dinaledi is where they found the first fossils.
Yeah.
That's down the chute. That's where like the biggest deposit
Oh
was found.
thousands of them.
Yeah, and then in Lesedi, they also found it actually like during the first expedition.
Yeah.
But they only excavated the next year basically.
All right.
This second chamber, the Lesedi chamber, contained at least 3 more individuals, and interestingly was very far away in the system from Dinaledi chamber.
So from there on it starts getting narrow.
Yeah.
Then it's like a climb and everything, but yeah. So this is kind of the last place where you can stand.
This is the actual entrance to the passageway eventually leading to Dinaledi chamber, and seeing quite how narrow it was here gave us a newfound respect for the cavers who retrieved these incredible fossils.
The biology of Homo naledi and the implications it has for human evolution are absolutely fascinating. This was a small-bodied hominin species with an average height of around 4'9", as well as a notably small brain size. One of the most intriguing things is the apparent mix of both basal, or primitive, as well as derived features in the skeleton, such as the combination of small brains with wrist anatomy much more like that of modern humans and Neanderthals.
Well, things became even more interesting in 2017 when Lee Berger and colleagues published another paper dating Homo naledi remains more precisely, finding that they lived just 335 to 236,000 years ago, over 1 million years more recently than they had initially thought.
This means that Homo naledi actually lived at the same time as several other human species, including the earliest members of Homo sapiens, showing that a surprising diversity of humans were actually around at this time. Not only were there large-brained modern humans and their close relatives, but also apparently a relict species of smaller-brained humans that had adapted in a different way. A lot of questions still remain about the exact relationships of this species to other hominins, but it seems possible that Homo naledi was actually also responsible for some of the tools found in the mid-Pleistocene of South Africa that had previously been thought to only be from anatomically modern humans. Indeed, the hands of Homo naledi appear to have been quite well suited for manual manipulation, hinting at a capacity for tool use. although they also seem to be adapted for climbing, which is very interesting. One of the more controversial ideas about Homo naledi concerns the question of how all these individuals actually ended up in the caves. Several papers were published at the same time when this new species was revealed in 2015, and one of these argued that all these individuals were potentially deliberately buried here, as there was no evidence of trauma suggesting they'd been dropped into the cave or dragged in there by predators. In fact, the chamber would never have been accessible to non-hominins, and they didn't find any signs of a flood or something that may have killed them all. They therefore concluded that this might be evidence of deliberate body disposal by this ancient human species, and as such, inferred that Homo naledi were engaging in some form of funeral culture. It's a tantalizing idea that a human species other than our own might have once been aware of their own mortality and had some form of ritual disposal of their dead. But as other papers have since pointed out, there are likely alternate explanations, with predation or some other natural cause having been ruled out too quickly. There is also some evidence that the decomposition of the hominins might have started before they ended up in the caves, and another paper suggests that the accumulation of the bodies was actually quite similar to cases of modern baboons that inhabit caves dying and becoming naturally aggregated.
Whatever the real reason they ended up here, there's no denying that Homo naledi is an astonishing and incredibly important hominin species, and it was utterly breathtaking to be standing in the cave system they once used. After climbing back up to the surface, we were taken to see the on-site storage room, as well as an outline of the cave currently being excavated, that was created by bringing rocks up to ground level and arranging them to represent the cave walls. This second cave is known only as Cave 105, and that's where we were going next.
Yeah, so this is basically the main chamber, and when we go down there I'll show you where the different dumps are.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is one of the biggest chambers. There's another quite a big chamber on the other side, and down there there's a passage that goes in and connects to another entrance. So it's quite a big system, but it's mostly like this. It's quite nice and open.
It was only quite recently that fossils had first been found in this cave, despite people mining it over 100 years ago. Hominid remains have been recovered from in here, as well as other animals such as bovids and suids, the group including pigs and their relatives.
So that chamber that goes, that long section is basically there. And this whole block actually used to be connected to the roof a very long time ago. And the dumps that we excavated, this is one, this is another one. So this is actually where most of the fossils came from. And there's another one on the other side. And this is the other dump. So a lot of the fossils came from here. And this is the fossil wall. So if you look closely, you'll see quite a few fossils in here.
Wow.
Yeah. So we think most of the fossils came from this area and from this entrance. Because basically this whole entrance is, all the walls are just breccia.
Yeah.
And up there as well. So this is kind of where we think all the fossils came from. Well, we're pretty sure. Yeah. No other place.
The very interesting thing about Cave 105 though, is that it's still not known for sure what the hominids found here actually are.
So what exactly hominids have been found here?
We don't know.
That is the question.
We're still trying to get them out the breccia blocks.
Yeah, so the stuff that they have found, I mean, you can say more, but it's weird because the teeth are like really big and the rest are quite small.
Yeah, so the postcranial is like quite gracile and very small, and then we're having massive teeth.
Yeah.
And also one of the deciduous teeth that we do have looks very much like the Tone child, but we're not sure. We're just like, oh, okay, this is interesting.
Yeah.
We were taken out into an area known as the amphitheatre, where a lot of the fossils are coming from.
And then that tunnel over there is where we possibly think the miners came through, so they blasted through there to get out here and then into the cave.
It's also still not yet known for certain how old the fossils being found here are. However, thanks to the flowstone that formed in between the fossils, an accurate age should be quite straightforward to determine.
Did you find them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're hominid or like
I think Lee said they might be.
or something.
Would it be a similar sort of age to the naledi chamber then?
No, so those fossils were actually not they were not actually fossilized.
Right.
They were just preserved in a way that they stayed intact over so many years.
Yeah.
And they were 250 or something
Yeah.
thousand years ago. So because these are in properly fossilized in a hard breccia, these will definitely be older, but we still need to see how old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although there's a possibility that the hominids from Cave 105 might be more Homo naledi, it seems more likely that they represent more Australopithecines of some sort, considering these hominins are present in other nearby sites too. Whether they're an already known Australopithecine species or something new though, is yet to be revealed.
One of the Australopithecine species known from nearby is the fascinating Paranthropus robustus, a very robustly built type of hominid, hence the name. One of the most distinctive features of Paranthropus are the huge sagittal crests along the top of their skulls, at least in male individuals, indicating tremendous biting forces, as well as their huge molar teeth. Again, the finding of these robust Australopithecines shows how diverse the human lineage once was.
So I'm part of the exploration team, so we used to go out and go into caves and look for more fossils.
Right.
And we obviously found lots of fossils, but
Yeah.
and lots of possible stuff that might be interesting, but not as much as you would think.
Yeah.
In other areas, but this area, yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, definitely lots more exciting discoveries to be made then.
Yeah, yeah.
Cave 105 is clearly a special place then, and it's exciting to think about what discoveries have been made here. One of the really cool things about the excavations here is also the fact that Professor Lee Berger has been making the whole thing public, with regular updates on what the team has been finding on Twitter as well as on his YouTube channel, The Fossil Vault. I think this is a brilliant way to get more people interested in paleontology and to allow everyone to see how the process of this science is really done, something Doug and I were also hoping to achieve with our own documentation of Julian's expedition. We were incredibly grateful to Cradle and Dirk for taking the time to show us around these caves, and more than a little awestruck at what we'd just been lucky enough to do. Walking around in the same caves that our ancient human relatives found themselves in was an unbelievable experience, once again eliciting feelings of connection to the deep, complex past of our evolutionary lineage. These prehistoric humans, these people, were once right here in the same place we were, and their presence could still be felt all these hundreds of thousands of years later.
After leaving the caves and saying goodbye to our wonderful guides, we then headed to Cradle Moon, a game lodge situated next to Cradle Moon Lake, where we'd been told it would be possible to hike around and see some wildlife.
This lake is here because of an impressive dam along the river, and the region is home to all sorts of fascinating, less fossilized animals. We enjoyed a very pleasant walk around the lake as we processed the incredible events of the day and appreciated just how beautiful the natural history of this country is. We were even treated to sightings of springbok, an incredibly elegant and strikingly marked antelope species.
We were both very excited about the possibility of seeing zebra on our hike, which we'd been informed was quite likely. So, as we walked along the trail, we kept our eyes peeled, on the lookout for anything that looked vaguely zebra-shaped.
After a while of not seeing anything, we thought perhaps we weren't going to encounter any, but then we spotted a herd.
These were plains zebra, the most widespread species, and it was absolutely incredible to be able to get as close to these magnificent animals as we did. They seemed very used to the presence of humans and barely gave us any notice as we admired them.
It was pretty cool to see the very obvious chestnuts on the forelegs of these zebras, the dark coloured callosities present on the inner sides of the legs, the exact function of which is still disagreed upon by researchers. Unlike in domestic horses, zebras only have these structures on their forelimbs.
Having spent most of our hike looking for these animals, it was wonderful to see so many of them all in one spot. But then, as we headed back to the car, there was suddenly a whole load of them right next to the car park. Clearly they really enjoy messing with humans. And that pretty much marked the end of our second day in South Africa. After returning to Johannesburg, we settled in for an early night in preparation for the start of the actual Thrinax 2021 field trip the next day.
I don't think it's an understatement to say that this second day in the country had been one of the greatest experiences of my life. To be able to see firsthand where so many of these fossil discoveries that I'd read about had been made, and to journey into the very caves where our ancient relatives once stood, was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Understanding the evolution of our own species and how we fit into the great tree of life is so important to appreciate our place in the natural world, and the cradle of humankind has undeniably played a major role in this.
But our South African adventure doesn't end there. In fact, it's only just beginning. Join us in the next episode as we head out into the Karoo to finally start our expedition, stopping off along the way in an area that preserves a Jurassic dinosaur trackway as well as the oldest dinosaur nesting site in the world.
Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new, and I really hope you're enjoying our South African adventures so far. A huge thank you once again to everyone who donated and made this trip possible, allowing Doug and I, as well as students at Wits University, to get this experience doing paleontological fieldwork.